Sandra V. Fader is the critically acclaimed author of the popular Daisy series of children's books, and she was back here on Big Blend Radio with us actually like almost 2 years ago with her book, The Moon Inside, that helps children with their fear of the dark. Come on, we all are scared about what's under the bed or in the closet at night, right? I mean, but she really, it's a beautiful book that she writes, wonderful illustrations. And we're so excited to have her back here with Nancy and I on Big Blend Radio to talk about her brand new children's book. It's called Bitter and Sweet. And this book helps children face the changes in their lives. It's illustrated by award-winning illustrator Kirsten Brooker. And of course, you can get it on Amazon, all those great places. But I always say go to the author's website, and it's Sandra V. Fader, so it's F-E-D-E-R, so SandraVFader.com. Sandra, it's so good to have you back. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to talking to you two again.
I know. We know it's party time.
I wish I had this book when I put Lisa through let's move here, 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 and then, oh, we're moving again. And by the way, we're moving.
Yeah. This helps. Because, you know, when you look at Bitter and Sweet, this is such a great story of a child going through change and moving.
Yes, absolutely. So in the story, Hannah, her family moves to a new town, and I really tried to paint the picture of what it feels like for a child and through a child's eyes, the things that they notice about a move. Of course, the artwork coming down from the walls at school, the porch not looking the same in the new house as the old house, new house being on a hill where it's not easy to ride or bike. These are all things that seem very important to children, whereas adults we might not think of those as being the biggest things about a move. And then, of course, leaving friends behind. That's also a very difficult thing.
I think moving is one of those things where now, as most people on Big Blend Radio listening in know that Nancy and I can't sit still. Now we're like, we're always moving. You know, we've got our Big Blend tour of parks and communities. Starting back up, everyone, May 2019, you'll see Nancy and I back on our road trip, you know, going to different national parks and all community parks, city parks and communities, because we love that change. But it takes time to love change and understand that it's a good thing. And you still have to have your feet on the ground, and you have to learn who you are. And I think that's what's interesting about Hannah. She started to learn the bitter, the sweet, and having to learn some balance and knowing who she is. It's part of her development as a human being.
Yes, I definitely think so. And I think we're all just like you two are sums of all these life experiences. So moving a lot when you were a kid helped you learn to be adaptable and really not just be okay with it, but love it. You like being on the road. You like going into these new communities and meeting new people. And that's a wonderful part of who you are. And for Hannah, she's developing sort of this resilience around change. And as you said, figuring out who she is, how to adapt and how to, at first she can only see sort of the harder parts, but by the end of the story, she sees the opportunity and the possibility in change.
Well, especially when you love where you were, you know, change is harder when you love where you are. And then you still have to make a change. If you don't love where you are, change is kind of easy, you know? But when you really like where you are and you have to make a change, it's kind of like, uh-oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. It's like,
right. And as children often don't have this choice. And one of my goals in putting a book together like this was really thinking about change, both in terms of a physical move, as Hannah does in the story, but also just life is full of change, whether it's anything like starting the new year or meeting new friends or joining a new soccer team or any of those things there's just change all the time around us. So figuring out how to deal with those changes, I think, is really important for children.
And for you, where did this story come from? Because your books are so they're fun to read. The illustrations are amazing, and you just feel like you're right in it. And you know, I look at this as an important book for kids for sure, but I also look at it as a reminder to parents when these changes occur to have that communication. And I feel like your book is that conduit that helps everyone come together on something, you know, this part of change, so the child is not alone when someone's moving, or maybe you're going to a new school, graduating, or, all these different things that happen, like you say, holidays, or maybe a new baby comes into the family, there's all of these things. Where did this idea come from?
Just as you said, I think it's really great to put something in the hands of parents and children that might open the conversation and just get people thinking about how we can help children through these changes, how we can remind them that they do have a certain natural resilience. And even though things may feel uncomfortable or unsure around change, that often there are great new things to come and new possibilities. I did not move a ton as a kid, but more so as an adult, and then moved my own family a couple times. And so I definitely have thought about this, what it feels like to, for kids to start again and to make new friends. And one of the things I tried to convey in the story is that if when a new friend reaches out to Hannah, that she starts to feel a little more comfortable. But it's really also when she reaches back that the magic happens. And I think that's been true for me as an adult. I'm sure it's true for you. When you go into a new place, it's the connections you make. And when you put some of yourself into your new situation, that's when you start to really feel the sweetness.
And it means a lot. Even when you're traveling to a new place, even for a vacation, the first friendly person that you meet makes you feel, okay, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I think adults, when you are moving, for whatever reason you're moving, you kind of forget what it might be like for your child, because there's so many things, logistics, that you have to deal with in the actual physical moving. And you just think, well, children are resilient, they can keep up, it'll be okay. And then it's like during the move, you start to see a little act out a bit, a little fear. Then you realize, you kind of put that on the second burner instead of maybe the first burner.
And then you need to bring pizza out.
And, you have to complain. But I think I would like buy this book, and every time you're moving, just hand it to everybody. Here, read this.
Have some cocoa.
Yes, have some cocoa. It's comforting. I think that's absolutely right. And one of the things I hope the book makes people aware of is, just as you said, you sort of have to acknowledge the feelings of the child. I think it's really important to acknowledge that change can be difficult and can be hard, and it can manifest itself in a child in many different ways. But I also think what's really neat about the adventures you two have, and in the story, Hannah reaches out to her grandmother, and her grandmother shares her own story of leaving the old country, starting over in a whole new country, not just a new town. And that kind of helps Hannah see her path, her journey in the bigger history and journey of her family. And I think sharing that kind of transition with a family member, with the people around you, your mentors, your loved ones, also can be helpful for a child.
For sure.
And also, so you have, your mentor in the family, a grandma, and at the same time, she started to question it, because it didn't happen like a little magic wand, just went, oh, it's all going to be sweet. She had to go through some of the bitter pill, basically, beforehand. And I think what's interesting is you go into some of the Jewish traditions in the book. So every family has some kind of tradition, and that's part of not only, making new friends and things happening and having to work through them and past her own barriers, but there's that sense of balance, family balance, that comes from having traditions.
Yes, absolutely. And one place in the story where Hannah just starts to feel a little more comfortably in the new home is a family dinner together. And I think sometimes reinventing your familiar family traditions in your new home can have sort of magical consequences, because it may not be exactly the same. The surroundings won't be exactly the same, but often the people are the same. And as you said, the rituals or customs can be the same, and that can be really comforting for a child.
I think it's really important that whatever you did in the old house, you do in the new house.
Yeah.
Because if you we change countries. So several times, and that's a big deal. And as an adult, you're so busy coping with it yourself that it's easy to look at the child and go, no, let's go with it. You're going to be fine. And you kind of space out a little bit on what they may be going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought you made a great point about how for adults and kids, that first friendly face, that first nice smile, that first welcome from someone makes such a difference. It means a lot. And I really hope, the other flip side of the story is that I hope kids will see how much it means to Hannah in this situation when somebody befriends her, and that they can be that friend for somebody else.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part of it too, because I remember being in different schools and, you're the new kid on the block, and then there's this percentage of everyone's like interested in you and you feel like popular, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, where's the next new kid? So there's this balance, or they're like, somebody's new, don't disrupt our playground. We already have our setup, so-and-so controls the basketball court, so-and-so controls this, and so like, if you're new, now you're the disruptor. And now we look at that as business as, oh, everybody be a disruptor. I don't really like that word. But as a new person, it goes through all these different things. Who you're going to sit with at lunch, and you'll get some nice people, and then you'll get people that like, don't step on my turf, depending. And it can be in all ages, all the way through high school is actually the worst. But I think if you start to learn these basics as a young child, it really helps you in the end.
I agree. And I think these life experiences are what you then draw on. So if you had a successful transition as a younger child, even if it's something mild, or even if a parent can remind you that each year you have had a different soccer coach and you adapted to that coach, or each year you go into a different classroom and you have a different teacher, and that's been a change, or whatever the other transitional points are throughout the year. But I think then you kind of realize, hey, I did make that transition. It might feel uncomfortable at the beginning, but I can find my way through it, and I can draw on those reserves.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that when change is a really different subject, change comes to you like from outside. Whether you're a child or an adult, things happen and change in the world. So sometimes you're forced to make a change, whether you want to or not. And then as a child, like everything's maybe happy-go-lucky, if there's such a thing, and you don't want to change because it's okay. But now you're forced to make a change, and it could be for the better, for the worse. It is what you make of it. And I like that I love the illustrations. The body language of the children in this book is incredible.
Yeah.
And I like how you show the process. It's a reminder. I mean, it made me think back. I'm like, I'm sorry, Lisa.
I'm looking at you now. Where was Sandra?
I'm sorry, the book is a little late, but it's here now.
Thank you. So if you're going to move, get this book.
I know, but it's beyond that. I think like you were saying, it's about change, and that's a life lesson that is often forgotten, that life revolves around change.
Yeah.
Change is really a part of everything, and as we have discussed, children and adults don't always have choices about the changes in their lives. It's just kind of a natural part of life that things don't stay the same. And I think if you can, again, sort of embrace that and say, okay, this may not have been what I've chosen, but here I am. And so how am I going to adapt to this? And what am I going to find in it that actually is the sweet part? And in the story, all children's books try to empower the child. And mine, I hope I was able to do that. I wanted, by the time you get to the end of the story, to feel like although this wasn't Hannah's choice, and at the beginning she can only see the harder or bitter parts, she really does come to not only find the sweetness, but figure out that she can create some herself. And I think that becomes a really empowering moment for us in confronting the changes in our lives. Okay, I've been handed this. What do I do with it? What are my choices here? What am I adding to the situation to make it mine, to create some of that sweetness?
And when you think about also going into her family traditions, her Jewish faith, there were some interesting parts of that that made me really think about, the bitter and the sweet. It is the foods, the light, things like that. That again, like that balance of this is our family traditions, and we have this core of what we do, no matter where we are or no matter what goes on. This is the core beliefs and core. It's a part of who you are as an individual and as a family. But it was really interesting because to me, like everything I got out of reading this was it's about learning balance and strength and character, right?
Yeah.
And so the yin and the yang is there, and it's like, part of the beliefs where you're going to have some, bitter herbs, and then you're going to drink some sweet grape juice. I like the wine, but anyway.
Absolutely.
So I like that tradition.
Yeah, and just as you said, there's so many wonderful rituals and traditions in so many different religions, and I put in some of my family's Jewish traditions in the story. Just as you said, I think they sort of point out the richness of family life and how ritual can be comforting for kids and familiar. And I do think Judaism has some wisdom around just recognizing that life is full of both the harder moments and the sweeter moments, but ultimately we're a people of great hope and feeling like we can help create some of the sweet in the world.
I like that.
Well, at least, the child has something to center on when everything else is changing in the world. And, and if you look from a child's eyes, when you're moving from one place to another, it's like their whole world has changed until you sit down to the family dinner and do the same things you did in the last city and out.
And I agree with it. Like when you move into your new room, your artwork's all changed, or some of it, something happens in the move, right? I've had it where things have, like, that was it. Goodbye to that.
Goodbye to all that.
And then you move your bed and it really doesn't fit near the window the way you want to. I'm just saying. I've had that. I have it now. Can't wait to get on the road just because my bed doesn't fit. No, but anyway, but that's the thing. There's these little things, and I love just getting down into how young people think, but it also reminds us adults too. And I think this is the beauty of books like yours. It's such a good thing to have a hardcover book with full color. We're such in a digital age, and I really appreciate that there's just like this tangible, real book that can go around and get torn up by kids at some point. It's going to get, jam on it, and, there's going to be, it's going to get dirty, but it needs to. That's value,
Yes.
I love that it's a hard copy book. Is that a decision you made? It was like, I'm going to do this right this way, and not just be Kindle, and here's your, digital side of it, which is nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that
Well, I guess I come from the generation where, a hardcover book that you can hold in your hands is just the gold standard. And so I love that my books have been hardcover books, and I've been really very lucky. My publisher has just found these amazing illustrators for me to work with. Wow. And as you mentioned, Kirsten Brooker's art is just amazing. She did these beautiful collages in this book that are really some oil paintings, some photographic material. They're just very rich. And I kind of came to think of them as really complementing the stories so beautifully, because they're like little mosaics of little pieces of things all put together, which I think is very much how life is. It's little pieces of experiences. And so the collage nature of these illustrations I just love. I think they came out beautifully and so make the book what it is.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you go from this is my idea concept, you write it and then work as the illustrator, or you kind of, this is the concept and now we're going to work together. What are your illustrations?
It's a funny thing, but in the world of children's literature, it's really the publisher and editor who take my words and pair me with an illustrator. And usually we have some conversations about that and the feel and the concept. But they are the ones who found Kirsten. And of course, then once I saw her work, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. But it's always exciting as an author when you see that first round of illustrations come back. And often the illustrator will put in little bits of their life and their personality and their vision. And it's just like this amazing stew that happens of my words and her illustrations, and together they make something, I don't know, it's not even double, it's like exponentially richer.
I love it. I love it.
You know, there's something about hardcover books. Like, I'm thinking about when Lisa, you know, was at the age where I would read her bedtime stories. I find it interesting, the idea of reading it off your phone or a tablet. Doesn't seem warm and inviting at all. Like a book is, when you open a book, it's inclusive from one side to the other, and you can show the child the illustrations, and you can show them different words, and it's like envelops you and the person you're reading to. On a phone, you just got this little square thing. I don't know.
There's tablets and stuff that do cool stuff, but there's an experience. It's just like vinyl records. Yeah. When you put the needle on the record, it becomes an experience. There's a difference. This is an experience.
Yeah. It's like, on my phone, see?
Yeah.
I agree with you. No, I think there's something just sort of delightful that happens reading a hardcover book with a child and one arm around the child and holding the book. And it's just a really special experience. And I know I've been actually really gratified to see that there still is a large market for children's literature and children's books. And all those things are often coming out after they're hardback in digital forms. There's still an appetite for those hardback books. And I like to tell myself that children's literature is going to be the last bastion of the actual book that you want to hold in your hands, partly because of those amazing illustrations and just, as you're saying, that experience.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it does end up like you're going to get it on your Kindle or on your tablet and what have you. So, and some people that's the only form they can get, or there's all of those things, which is great. It can travel further afield, which is great.
That's
but if you can get,
if
you can get a hard copy, it just is this, like I said, an experience. And I think when you look at what's going on in the world, those treasured moments between a parent and a child, or maybe it's, a sibling sitting down together, they're like, sisters or brother sisters getting together, cousins, and having those moments, that creates a memory. And that's what really good children's books do, create memories, and in core, like, puts this information in your core, like, helps part of your development as a human being. So I really appreciate what you do, Sandra. Are you working on another one?
I am. I'm very excited to be continuing with Groundwood, my current publisher, and I have 2 books coming out with them. One is called Angry Me, and one is called Peaceful Me, and they are about emotions and helping children deal with their emotions.
I never got angry. I'm super excited, and please don't make it 2 years before you come back on Big Blend Radio.
Thank you.
Get on with it before I bring my angry me out. I'm just kidding.
Yes, exactly.
No, we love what you're doing. Again, everyone, the book is Bitter and Sweet by Sandra V. Feder, and it's Feder. So go to her website, SandraVFeder.com. Again, give a shout out to Kirsten Brooker, the amazing illustrationist as well. You can get the book on Amazon, all those great places, Barnes & Noble, you name it. Just Google it, it's there. And we'll also have everything up on blendradioandtv.com for you. And we want to give a shout out to this segment sponsor, which I think ties perfectly. We like to do that around here. It's FamilyHistoryExpos.com. And what they do is we've got Holly T. Hansen, the Gen teacher, Miss Holly, we call her, and she helps people trace their family history, not just in this country, but around the world. She has expos, virtual online expos, where you can go and listen to people, watch videos on how to do things. When you find out, you go get your 23andMe, and you go like, oh, I got part of my history is in Czechoslovakia. Now what? Like, how do I find that out? She helps you. So go to FamilyHistoriesExpos.com. And we gotta close with some music here.
Yeah, we do.
Our little conversation here, Sandra. This is called Uncle Remus Tales. It's from the Tallman Group out of Southern California. I know you're in Northern California. They're amazing. They have songwriting challenges. 6 tall men, once a month, they have a challenge. and then they create an album once a year out of their songwriting challenges. But Uncle Remus Tales is, you want every uncle to sit and, write and read their tales. And that's what it's about. So everyone, you can go to tallmengroup.weebly.com or find them on CD Baby. It's from their album Too Tall. And don't forget, listen to Big Blend Radio. All of our shows and segments are available through bigblendradio.com. Thanks so much for joining us, Sandra. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here it is, Uncle Remus Tales.
He come home from work, I was already in bed. Mama fix him a plate, I'd stay awake, 'cause I knew once he was fed, he'd climb them stairs, open the door to my room. With a pat on the head, he'd sit on the edge and read me a story or two about Brother Bear and Mr. Cricket. Old Brer Rabbit loved jumping in the thicket, and brave King Lion saving Sister Cow. They lived together in them woods somehow, and every time without fail, off into dreamland I'd sail, with Daddy reading them Uncle Remus tales. Now that old storyteller, he lived in a cabin in the South, with a corncob pipe bouncing just right. Stories flowed with the smoke from his mouth. Daddy would read them just the way they was written. Damn creatures came alive at my bedside, sometimes scared me a bit, like when Sister Fox met Swamp Gator. That gizzard eater nearly ate her. Don't be frightened now, Brother Frog, you'll be safe in that old hollow log. And every time without fail, off into dreamland I'd sail, with Daddy reading them Uncle Remus tales. Now I come home from work, my boy's never asleep. I fix me a plate, climb them stairs, into his room I will peek. Him and his friends are playing them video games. I shake my head, shut the door, think to myself what a shame for poor Brother Bear and Mr. Cricket. Nobody cares, Brer Rabbit's in the thicket, or brave King Lion saving Sister Cow. Wish my daddy would read me one now, like when Sister Fox met Swamp Gator. Man, that gizzard eater nearly ate her, and every time without fail, off into dreamland I'd sail, with my daddy reading them Uncle Remus tales. Some nights we'd both fall asleep to them Uncle